Tanya Geisler. I'm so excited to have you on today. I want to share with the world who you are. You are a certified leadership coach. You are a TEDx women speaker and writer who teaches women and women-identified people how to step into their starring roles, their own authority, and overcome the imposter complex with unshakable confidence in their life, in their work, and in their life's work. And I'm so excited that you're here. So can you tell us a little bit about you and your work? And
Yes, I'm delighted to be here. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much, honey. We met in Mexico a couple of years ago. Sayulita, it's so beautiful. I am a leadership coach. I am kind of obsessed with helping folks to overcome the imposter complex. In all of their life. I just was talking to somebody who is doing magnificent things in their business. They came to this work around the imposter complex, and the moment they committed to becoming what I would call a huntress of the imposter complex, being able to predict when it was going to show up and figure out how to, because it shows up on the precipice of something new and exciting and important. So knowing and anticipating that it's going to be here whenever we are at the precipice of something new is what I'm really, really interested in and helping. I want to help people to understand the technology underneath, how to overcome it time and time and time again. And I'm just really obsessed with that. And I'm also a mom of a brilliant 15-year-old who's such a great teacher. I'm here in Toronto, and life is good. I'm happy to be here.
I would consider you an artist too.
Oh,
on so many different levels. I mean, you're a writer. The work behind you is yours, which we just talked about.
That is true. We have every single piece of art in our household. I have created, or my husband and I have created, largely we love original art. And there was a time we just absolutely could not afford it. So we're like, all right, canvases are cheap. Let's see what we can do. Very fun. Yeah.
You cook. That is a creative act. That's a passion of yours.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So artist, coach, and, I have been following your work since I met you and adore it.
Thank you.
And I just shared with you that when I'm coaching women, it shows up every single time. And I always tell them, go follow Tanya.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. It's super. This is so, I will tell you right now, I know that we've got a very short period of time, and I always feel agitated because there's so much that I want you all to know, that you are an incredible company. I want to attribute the teachers. There's so much I want to tell you. So just go ahead and ask me anything. And everything I have is yours.
Yeah. So tell us, okay, how do you see the imposter showing up for women most commonly? What are the most common ways that it shows up, especially creative women?
Okay, so this is, again, one of those how long is a piece of string. So that's okay. We will get to the places. So the imposter complex tries to keep us out of action. It wants us to doubt our capacity, and it wants to keep us alone and isolated. Okay, so those are the three major things that it's trying to do.
Right.
At pretty much at every turn, that's what it's trying to do. So we don't want to experience feeling like an imposter. So we go to specific behaviors to hide out from it. So that looks like, hands up where we can see them. It looks like procrastination. It looks like perfectionism. It looks like comparison. It looks like diminishment. It looks like people pleasing, and it looks like leaky boundaries. So these are all of the places that it's going to, because we don't want, like I said, we don't want to feel like the imposter. So we're gonna make sure that nobody knows that we're not supposed to be here by turning in impeccable work. It's gonna be we're gonna perfect it. It's gonna be absolutely perfect. But here's the problem: all of these behaviors that we run to are actually double binds, meaning we go to this behavior to avoid feeling like the imposter, but engaging in it has us feeling like the imposter. Tracking. Mm-hmm. So I want to make sure that my work is impeccable, and I work 2 to 3 times as hard as anybody else to make sure that you all know that I'm the best of the best of the best of the best. But when I look up for my work and I go, wait a minute, Why do I have to work two to three times as hard as anybody else? Clearly, I'm the imposter. And here's how it plays out with those of you who are people pleasers, which is totally my thing.
Yeah. Right here.
Right here. It's really important that that you like me, right? So I'm going to use my charm. I'm going to use my likability. I'm going to use all of the things that I can. But when I'm given opportunities, when we're given opportunities, we chalk it up to them just being nice, or we were given the opportunities just because they like us, not because we are truly skilled and talented and excellent at what we do. Right. So that's how it shows up in these behaviors. And they're all double binds, trust me on this. And these all kind of collude with what my friend Joe Casey calls feminine conditioning. So
say more about that.
Right. So people pleasing, leaky boundaries, perfectionism, these are all tied to good girls don't, or good girls do, right?
Or good girls shouldn't.
Shouldn't, absolutely. So make sure that everybody likes you. Put that smile on your face. No means yes, and yes means no. So those are where so there's people pleasing, and then there's boundaries, and then there's that perfectionism, right? Like you have to be perfect. Diminishment, don't brag, don't boast, don't be too much. God forbid one be too much. Comparison is, and I also want to be absolutely stunningly clear about this. Most people who have strong values of mastery, integrity, and excellence experience the imposter complex. Okay, so that is across the board. So men experience it, women experience it, and folks in the binary experience it. Like everybody can experience it as long as they've got the strong values of mastery, integrity, and excellence. And the way we experience it depends on where we sit on different intersections. So if you are the man who is the center of the universe, that white, able-bodied, cisgendered, neurotypical man, you are probably the most immune to it. Doesn't mean that he doesn't experience it, but for every concentric circle that you are distanced from that by gender, by race, by class, by ability, so not just that any one of these are differently placed, but for every intersection that you are distanced from that center of the universe, you are going to experience it more, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So most people experience it, but women, we're at least one concentric circle away. And then we have this feminine conditioning that overlays, that truly colludes with these behavioral traits. So, to make a sweeping generalization, men experience it from a place of kind of procrastination and perfectionism, but we've got all of these different layers, and they do, riff off of each other.
Right.
Perfectionism and procrastination, right?
Yes.
Diminishment and comparison. So we really have to untangle, and they really do play off of each other. And I've got a diagram that looks like the Matrix.
And when crazy. You say they're double binding, you mean that if you're experiencing one, chances are you're experiencing multiple others, right?
Yes. Well, that's kind of two things. So one is when we go to diminishment or when we go to comparison to not feel like the imposter, because we're afraid that we don't belong, by engaging in that specific behavior, we feel it even more. So it gets us coming and going, right? So again, to people pleasing, if I want to make sure that I fit in, right, that I'm in the group, then I'm going to use my likability. But then by using that likability, rather than just standing in my authentic Tanya-ness, I think that I'm given the opportunity because they like me, not because of my authentic Tanya-ness.
And you might be hurting your boundaries if you.
Yes. Right. Exactly. And the boundaries, think about the times where you have stood, you've been in a group and maybe, the consensus was this one thing. You decided to just go along with it. So then you're standing in an opinion that's not your own. So then you do feel like the imposter. So that's how it kind of gets you coming and going. And yes, then, your leaky boundaries can collude with your people pleasing, can collude with your perfectionism, can collude with all of that. So it's very intricate. And I also want to say though, for a moment, that in the self-development space, we can talk a lot about stop your perfectionism and stop your comparison and stop all these behaviors. But there's so much more discernment and nuance when we recognize that diminishment actually comes from a place of humility. People pleasing can actually be part of your value of inclusivity and also safety. If you've ever been a marginalized person, people pleasing is a way to survive.
Right.
So I want to just like dial down that it's not always, doesn't come from a place because we are bad or foolish or, silly little so-and-sos that just need to get over it. They come from deeply rooted places. And I just think that that's kind of, that piece is missing a little bit of nuance in some of the self-development spaces.
And I don't know about you, but I think people that are creatively minded almost feel an amplified version of this too. Right? Like, is that essay I just wrote good enough? Is that blog post good enough? Is that, am I doing this to please someone else? Does it have to be perfect? Does the grammar have to be right before it goes out?
Right. Absolutely. And if you think about like what creativity is, the imposter complex is really obsessed with certainty. So you are all or nothing.
Right.
You are either a complete success or a raging failure. There is nothing in between. So how do you know when a piece of art is done? Right? How do you know when a blog post is ready? You don't. You don't. So I've got a podcast called Ready Enough because that's what we're really exploring. Like, when is it ready enough? Like, line number 7 is, you're not ready yet. And this is one place where the imposter complex is, you might be ready one day, honey, once you've like finished your PhD in that, or you've taken that course, or you've had the nod from that, director. And that day is not today.
Yeah. And so often I see it, especially with creatives and artists, is it's not just one course. It's like, I'll be ready when I've taken 10 courses.
All of them.
Yeah. I've got to know everything about this particular area before I can put my work out there.
Right. So even notice that I need to know everything, right? Like, that is the like all or nothing. So It is obsessed with certainty, and it is obsessed with absolutes. So if you don't know everything, then you know nothing. And so that's for creatives. There's nobody to tell you when it's all done, right? It's all internally motivated. And that can be really, really, really tricky. And Chris Brogan said, creatives are a needy bunch. God bless us. We are. There is a way. I mean, it's really strange and problematic in some ways, but there's a lot of truth to it because of where does the validation come from? And if we don't have this, and again, imposter complex wants you to keep you out of action, doubting your capacity, and alone and isolated. Well, keeping you out of action, if you have deprioritized your art, then it will sit on the sidelines in favor of what everybody else wants you to do.
Right.
So it will sit there. You will stay out of action. It wants you to doubt your capacity. Well, how rhetorically sound is the criticism that you're getting from other people all around you about your art? Are you doing your work in isolation? Are you bringing folks into it? So absolutely, creatives come up against it. And then the other thing is the imposter complex. So I really appreciated that you said that I was an artist and a creative, and I don't think of myself in that way, and that's not my own imposter complex, but it's I think of myself as a writer. I think of myself, and I don't often think of myself. So I'm really going to sit with that, and I really appreciate that acknowledgement. But there's a way in which, my art, because I don't consider myself an artist, that doesn't, when I sit down to face a canvas, okay, like, I'm just going to play with it. I'm going to have some fun. But where it does show up is in my coaching and in my speaking and in my parenting. And so those are the places that are, absolutely deeply rooted in my heart, because it shows up where it matters the most to you. So I have a yoga practice. I love yoga. I have zero need to be masterful. So that's easy for me. But the places where I really desire mastery, that's what's going to show up. Now, When I start to decide that I want to go, to become more of an artist, then it will show up. In this moment, it's not there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those that are experiencing it in their art, do you have like one or two things that you can tell them that might be a little bit of a balm to
No.
that experience?
Bless you. You are experiencing it because you have strong values of mastery, integrity, and excellence. Mwah. You are experiencing it in your art because it deeply, deeply matters to you, which is why it's so important and which is why it is vital that you don't let it keep you out of action. And you're in an incredible company. You are in absolutely incredible company. There's not a single person that you admire or that you've looked up to that hasn't experienced it in some way, shape, or form, because we all, if we have strong values of mastery, integrity, and excellence, experience it at our edge. So you're in unreal company. Name somebody, Google their name, Google imposter complex or syndrome, and you will see something come up about it, including Meryl Streep and Maya Angelou. Actually, I don't have any visual artists right now, so I'll have to do a little research on that. But you are in unbelievably good company. Take that and use it in your art. Take that and use it in your art. Infuse your art with this tenacity and a reverence for the gifts that you are, because it absolutely, the imposter complex has zero patience and time for you bolstering your own capacity. And the best thing you can do there is to really root into the beautiful things that you create that make the world so much better.
Oh, I love that. Rooting into what you create. So beautiful. Well, you have a gift for everyone, I believe. Can you share what that is?
Well, it's really important because this is so complex and so layered. I think it's really helpful for you to understand which your behavior that you tend to go to is, because they're all a little bit different and they do some shape shifting, but knowing which one is really going to serve you in your art. So if you go to tanyageisler.com/quiz, you can find out which behavioral trait is in the way and then what to do about it specifically.
And who doesn't love a good quiz?
Yeah, this one got my kids' approval, and this is back when she was like super obsessed with like BuzzFeed and which Starbucks drink are you. So like, I got all the thumbs up. So
me too. Major thumbs up. Tanya Geisler, it is such an honor to have you as a part of this Creativity Summit. Thank you so much.
Thank you for what you do and how you do it with such beauty and grace and integrity. It's amazing.